In 2003, after a violent rainstorm struck the ruins of Teotihuacan, the ground opened beside the temple of the feathered serpent. The hole was less than a metre wide. Archaeologist Sergio Gomez first thought it was damage caused by water. Then he aimed a flashlight into it and saw only darkness. He tied a rope around his waist and descended. Below the plaza, he landed inside a man-made tunnel, blocked in both directions by enormous stones. The passage had been sealed for nearly 1800 years, and whoever closed it had buried an entire version of the Underworld beneath one of the most powerful cities in the ancient Americas. Teotihuacan stands about 50 kilometers northeast of modern Mexico City. Its original name is unknown. The name used today came from the Aztecs, who encountered the abandoned ruins centuries later and connected them with the creation of the gods. At its height, Teotihuacan was one of the largest cities on Earth. Its builders laid out monumental pyramids, plazas, canals, apartment compounds, and a central road now called the Avenue of the Dead. But they left behind no readable royal history, no confirmed list of kings, no clear portraits naming individual rulers, and no royal tomb archaeologists can identify with certainty. That is what made the tunnel so important. If investigations into cities that vanished without explaining themselves are why you're here, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because beneath this pyramid, archaeologists found more than a passage. They found a world designed for people, expected to return with power. Ground-penetrating radar showed that the tunnel stretched roughly 100 meters from the plaza to the center of the pyramid. It ended in 3 chambers directly beneath the monument. The true entrance had been deliberately closed with large stones. The passage itself had been packed with earth by the people of Teotihuacan around the 3rd century. Excavating it would take years. Before anyone could enter the narrowest sections, a small robot named Tlaloque I was sent ahead. It moved through a gap only about 25 centimeters high and transmitted the first images from deeper inside. What appeared was not an empty construction tunnel. There were carved stones, carefully placed deposits, and a route continuing toward the heart of the pyramid. When archaeologists finally moved through it, the first clue was everywhere. The tunnel glittered. Fine fragments of metallic minerals, including pyrite and hematite, had been worked into its surfaces. Under torchlight, they would have reflected moving points of light through the darkness. Not daylight, not ordinary decoration, a false night sky beneath the earth. The builders had created stars where no stars could exist. That changed the purpose of the tunnel. It was not simply a hidden hallway, it was a constructed landscape. Above it stood the pyramid, imagined as a sacred mountain. Below it ran an artificial cave. In Mesoamerican belief, caves could be entrances to the underworld, places of creation, sources of water, and points where ancestors or supernatural forces were approached. The architects of Teotihuacan did not wait to find the correct cave beneath their temple. They made one. And they filled it with a sky that belonged underground. But the stars were only the first clue. Farther along the passage, the rock had been shaped into miniature mountains. Small hollows had been cut into the floor. Inside some of them, archaeologists found something that should never be touched with bare hands: liquid mercury. The silvery metal was rare in ancient Mexico. It is difficult to obtain, dangerous to handle, and reflective even in weak light. One interpretation is that it represented water in the land of the dead. Under a moving flame, droplets would have looked like shining rivers or lakes. The pyrite created stars, the mercury created water, the carved stone created mountains. The tunnel was becoming a miniature universe, and at the end waited 3 chambers sealed, since the city was still alive. Now, does the mercury prove that Teotihuacan possessed forgotten technology? No. There is no evidence that it powered a machine, generated electricity, or served an industrial system. Its location, rarity, and reflective surface fit a ritual interpretation far better. Does the tunnel prove that a single king ruled the city? Not yet. The expected royal tomb did not appear in the clear form many archaeologists hope to find. Teotihuacan still refuses to reveal whether power belonged to one ruler, several rulers, or shifting groups of elites. But the absence of a tomb may make the tunnel more important. A tomb would explain the death of one powerful person. The tunnel may explain how power itself was created. The feathered serpent pyramid and the ciudadela around it were built, while Teotihuacan was becoming a dominant center. The monument required planning, labor, valuable materials, and the ability to organize people on a massive scale. Beneath and around it, archaeologists also found evidence of human sacrifice associated with the building's dedication. The complex joined creation, warfare, religion, and government in one place. Above ground, tens of thousands of people could gather in the enormous plaza. Below ground, only a small number could enter the artificial underworld. Public power was displayed above. Sacred power was manufactured below. The offerings reveal how far that power reached. Shells came from distant coasts. Greenstone, amber, pyrite, animal remains, and other rare materials were brought beneath the temple. The city built a model of the cosmos, using pieces of the real world: sea, mountain, sky, predators, plants, fire, water. Everything was compressed into a passage 100 meters long. Then the entrance was filled and sealed. For nearly 18 centuries, the chambers remained beyond reach. No ancient robbers cut through the offerings, and no later ruler cleared the tunnel for reuse. That preservation allowed archaeologists to recover wooden objects, seeds, fragments of hair and skin, jewelry with cords still attached, and flowers that should have disappeared long ago. These are small things compared with a pyramid, but they bring the builders closer. Someone carried the flowers underground. Someone arranged the shells. Someone placed the greenstone figures at the end of the tunnel. Someone scattered the minerals that became stars when torches were lit. And when the final ceremony ended, someone ordered the passage closed. Why? Perhaps the ritual had changed. Perhaps political power shifted. Perhaps the tunnel had completed its purpose. A later platform was built against the feathered serpent pyramid, covering much of its decorated face. The city later suffered destruction, burning, decline, and abandonment. Centuries afterward, the Aztecs looked at the ruins and gave the place the name by which we know it. They did not know the people who built the tunnel. Neither do we. We do not know what language they spoke. We do not know the names of the greenstone figures. We do not know whether a ruler once walked through those chambers and returned to the plaza above. But we know the underworld was deliberately constructed. The stars were placed by hand. The mountains were carved. The shining water was carried underground. And more than 100,000 objects were surrendered to a place almost nobody would ever see. That is the final contradiction of Teotihuacan. One of the greatest cities in the ancient world built its most revealing monument where the public could not enter. Its pyramids rose toward the sky. Its answer was buried below them. Today, the tunnel remains closed to ordinary visitors. The artifacts are still being studied, restored, and digitally recorded. Each can explain part of the ritual, but no single discovery has solved the central mystery. Was this the road to a royal tomb removed before the tunnel was sealed? Was it a place where rulers were created rather than buried? Or was it a chamber where priests renewed the relationship between the city and the forces beneath the earth? The people who knew the answer left no readable explanation. They left a path beneath a sacred mountain, through a sky made of stone and metal, toward chambers hidden under the center of their world. The entrance was sealed. The city was abandoned. But beneath Teotihuacan, the underworld they built is still there. And the next investigation is waiting on screen now. The possibility was immediate. Could one chamber contain the first royal tomb ever discovered at Teotihuacan? The city had monuments large enough to dominate the horizon, elite compounds, long-distance trade, military power, and influence across Mesoamerica. Yet its system of government remains uncertain. Some researchers argue that Teotihuacan was ruled by kings. Others believe authority may have been shared among several elite groups or councils. A royal burial could have changed that debate. It might have provided a body, symbols of office, or evidence that one person stood above the city. But instead of a ruler, archaeologists found offerings in numbers almost impossible to imagine. More than 100,000 objects have been catalogued from the passage and its chambers. There were ceramics, jewellery, shells, obsidian blades, greenstone ornaments, rubber balls, animal remains, seeds, wooden objects, and thousands of pieces made from pyrite. Some materials had travelled enormous distances. Large conch shells came from coastal waters far from the city. Green stones carried deep value across Mesoamerica. Jaguar and puma remains brought powerful predators into a place no ordinary animal could enter. These were not objects dropped by accident. They were arranged as offerings. In one area, priests laid down 17 layers of shells. In another, they placed 4 bunches of flowers into a pit, added wood, corn, chile, nopal seeds, and a miniature stone pyramid, then burned the offering. The flowers survived in the damp darkness for nearly 2,000 years.